Oh! Why, hello and welcome to the channel I call my house. We're watching Rosemary's Baby. I can't wait. So let's, come on in. Come on. Let's watch it. Come on. Okay, hold on. Come on. All right, we're okay. Also, you know, you could hit that beautiful red subscribe button.
Do you have children?
We plan to. Oh, it's a wonderful apartment. I love it.
See what she's trying to do? She's trying to get you lower the rent.
Quite the interesting film here, Rosemary's Baby, from 1968. Roman Polanski's masterpiece of horror. This is one that I expected to like more than I did. Now, that's not to say this isn't a great movie, because it's a great movie. I think this is a very, very great movie. And it does a lot right, and it does a lot that's incredibly interesting. But I did expect it to be better because of the reputation it has. Similar to a movie like The Exorcist. The Exorcist is one that has a towering reputation of being the scariest movie of all time. Such a frightening, crazy movie. And then half of it is very quiet, and it was kind of off-putting because what I expected it to be didn't quite meet that expectation. And Rosemary's Baby is very similar, not just in the expectation way, but in the way it's executed, because they are kind of a cut from the same cloth. This era is just something that has a rhythm and a cadence to it that I'm not quite accustomed to. Now, The Exorcist definitely feels more modern than Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby does feel like a movie kind of set in the era it was made. Again, it was from 1968, which is the same year that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, but we won't talk about that. That dialect, that music that's very common from this 50s, 60s era of film. And it does transcend it, which is nice, because most of the movies in this era are pretty dull. And at times, this was dull. And I will say that straight off the bat. There are times at this movie when I found myself checking my phone when I didn't really want to, because I found what was going on a little bit obvious, a little bit talky, and a little bit poorly paced. And it's not overtly poorly paced. I think the pace is okay, but there are some things, especially in the first hour or so, that I think could have been trimmed up a little bit.
There are no witches, not really. The name is an anagram.
I found myself just kind of detached from it at certain points, and I wish I didn't feel that way, because there is some great craft going on in the filmmaking and the editing, which is really interesting. The editing is so harsh and sharp. Speaking about how obvious it is at times, it does get a little bit wordy and over-explanatory with what's going on. There's this excellent sequence that's kind of this hallucinatory drug trip sequence where Rosemary is being raped by Satan.
This is no dream. This is really happening.
You don't need that line. You could cut that line. You don't need to explain that to the audience. Even in 1968, they probably would understand that, oh, yeah, this is actually happening. Piggyback off of that, there isn't a huge gap between how subtle this is and how overt it is. And that's unfortunate. I wish it was more subtle, because it becomes painfully clear very early on that these two elderly people that is living next to Rosemary are doing something dastardly to her, and her husband's in on it, and everything that they do and everybody they enlist is in on this plot for Rosemary's Baby. There's only like one or two scenes where it asks the audience if it is real or not, because most of it is pretty obvious that this is happening and she isn't imagining this. The only real scene that kind of makes you question your own logic is when she goes to see another doctor.
They planned everything right from the beginning. They probably made some sort of deal with Guy. They gave him success, and he promised them our baby to use in their rituals.
That does sound crazy, and it does kind of make you question the logic that you've had up until this point, because it does flow nicely, and you go, okay, yeah, they're evil, they're putting something in that drink, yeah, they're witches, I'm with her, and then when you say it out loud, you go... So aside from a couple little pacing bumps, some speed bumps in the pacing, and some obvious dialogue and some obvious placating to the audience about what's going on. It's a pretty solid movie. I enjoyed it. I wish, again, the atmosphere was a little bit stronger. It's very good, but because of those few issues, it does kind of fall apart at a couple points. But I think for what it is, it's a great movie. From the very get-go, it's clear that this is going to be something very weird and different and off-putting and off-kilter. It has a run-and-gun kind of filmmaking style that I enjoy. There's a great scene when she walks into traffic, and they just did that. They actually just walked into traffic, and it's obvious that they just pulled that with no permits because all the New Yorkers or wherever they were shooting are just like... But the story, too, I think escalates in a very satisfying way. It goes from this couple moving into this apartment. They're wide-eyed. They moved in there to have the man become a successful actor. She's going to be a great stay-at-home mom. She's making this house a home, this apartment her home. And it's this nice, cheery, upbeat start to the movie. We meet a couple people, someone in a laundry room. I do like that the husband isn't overtly a part of them right at the start. It would be, I think, more cynical and mean-spirited if the husband was trying to exploit his wife immediately, but he isn't. He's slowly lured in by these people, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. But there is kind of an undercurrent of elite people exploiting women, and that's something that maybe I was just projecting onto the movie as the Harvey Weinsteins of the world ran through my brain. But it's this society of witches that are all kind of elderly. They're all the elites of this world that is Rosemary's Baby, and they're just exploiting her for their personal gain. And it feels like that woman that committed suicide, Terry, I think is her name in the movie, was in a similar boat of exploitation. And the grandma that lived in that apartment that fell into a coma and mysteriously died was probably in a similar exploitation. It's this cycle that the movie seems to be tackling, which again could just be baseless speculation on my part, but it does feel like elite exploiting women is a kind of an undertone to this. Another undertone that I appreciated is the motherly instincts of the movie.
Rocky.
Trying to get me to be his mother.
Aren't you his mother?
A mother is going to be a mother regardless of what the baby is or looks like or how the pregnancy was, because it makes it very obvious that the pregnancy was miserable throughout the movie. And there's great sequences where she just looks like a ghost. She's pale white. She has these red lips. Her cheeks are sunken in. She looks like she's 80 pounds. She looks horrible. And a lot of people remark on that. This is a bad situation. This is not good. And yet, at the end, her motherly instincts take over, and even through the hardship she endured and all these people that exploited her, she still wanted to be a mother to that child, and I enjoyed that. But it never explicitly tells you that, oh, it's, 16, there's only one time, like, 16 weeks in. Oh, 4 months. Yeah, I'm like 7 months in. Instead of telling the audience, it does a great job of showing the audience, like when they're out Christmas shopping or they're having a New Year's party, stuff like that, to clue the audience in to how long this is taking, when we are in the movie, and how things are progressing. I think that's a great decision. I think Roman Polanski does a great job of visually telling the audience what's going on with her, how she's feeling, how she looks.
This is no dream. This is really happening.
I think it's a very good movie. I think this is a solid movie that I will return to. It's a little long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that may have played into why I found it a little dull, because I think it could be trimmed. The pacing could be a tad better. And, of course, me, guy no one cares about, telling Roman Polanski how to make his masterpiece of horror. You don't have to listen to me. This is just how I felt about it. I think it could be trimmed. I think it's a little obvious. And again, it's from the 60s, which just has a different rhythm to it. So maybe that's just part of it. I'm not super accustomed to movies from this era. I've seen a handful, and they all kind of have this feel to them, but this feel is just not something I connect to too often. And this does a pretty good job, though, of making me interested in it. So I'll give it credit for that. I think it's great. Next week's movie will be E.T. So we're going to watch E.T. next week on Weekly Classic Movie Show. See you then.
Up and